I'm here today with Wes Granberg-Michaelson. He's the author of the forthcoming book, Without Oars, Casting Off into a Life of Pilgrimage, as well as previous books, which include From Times Square to Timbuktu, The Post-Christian West Meets the Non-Western Church, and also Future Faith, 10 Challenges for Reshaping Christianity in the 21st Century. But also for more than 17 years, Wes served as General Secretary of the Reformed Church in America and has long been active in ecumenical initiatives such as the Global Christian Forum and Christian Churches Together. All of which, not to mention that he's been associated heavily with the Ministry of Sojourners for approximately 40 years. So Wes has got an incredible history of making a huge difference in a lot of faith-related work. So Wes, it's so wonderful to have you with us here today.
Well, it's great to be here, Brian. I appreciate your generous words. It's very kind.
Well, you've, accomplished just a huge amount of, wonderful things. And I think we're all really going to be looking forward to this new book. I should have said that its release date's November 17th. So
right.
It'll be here just around the corner. So before we dive into that, though, maybe you can just tell people in a little bit more detail about some of the things I just barely touched on in terms of, your background, the work that you've done besides books, and then the books that you've written.
Well, it's been an interesting journey, Brian. I was raised in a strong white evangelical subculture. My grandfather was a good friend of Billy Graham, and that's kind of the environment I grew up in. And then I grew from that into a broader experience of faith. I've had a lifelong preoccupation with how faith relates to public life and politics, that intersection between the world and the word. And that probably came because when I started my career, I was the chief legislative assistant to U.S. Senator Mark Hatfield. It was during the time of the Vietnam War, and Hatfield was a leading opponent and also publicly known as a Christian and evangelical. In fact, he was the kind of person that doesn't exist today, a liberal Republican and a progressive evangelical. So,
wow.
But from there, then my journey took me into the ministry, and also the early days working in the beginning of Sojourners, and then I was with the World Council of Churches in Geneva, Switzerland, where we focused a lot on the issues of environmental stewardship. That was kind of my portfolio, what we called integrity of creation. Did a lot of writing around that too. And then there was this unexpected turn where I was invited to become General Secretary of my denomination, the Reformed Church in America. And as you said, that was 17 years, and it also included a lot of ecumenical work, such as Christian Churches Together and the Global Christian Forum. So it's been a journey so far that has continually taken me to unexpected destinations. And I wrote a memoir a few years ago and gave it that title, Unexpected Destinations, and that kind of continues now. I wrote some earlier books, especially about environment, and then one on leadership from inside out, that spirituality and organizational change, subject that I think is so key to us today. But in the last probably 7 years, my attention's turned a lot to what's happened in the world church and the shift of world Christianity to the global South. And that led to the book From Times Square to Timbuktu. And that was about how the post-Christian West meets the non-Western church, which is essentially the dynamic, I think, in global Christianity today. And then Future Faith was an attempt to look at the 10 challenges that we are facing in the future globally, the challenges that are pushing the future of Christianity and what those mean for U.S. congregations right here. So that's kind of the preface, and but in the last 3 years, I've become completely captivated by the experience of pilgrimage as the way in which we understand our space, our faith, embody it, and live it out. So that's what this latest book is about, and that's where a lot of my heart is.
Wow, what a body of work, as they say. It's just pretty amazing, Wes, how much you've accomplished. I know until I read it in your bio, I had no idea that Sojourners was 40 years old. Could you tell us just a little bit about what that looked like when it started? How did it get going?
Well,
And
I tell you, I was working for Mark Hatfield in the middle of the Vietnam War, and he was being pretty harmfully, almost viciously criticized by other Christians for opposing Nixon and opposing the Vietnam War. And this newsprint magazine came across my desk. It was called The Post-American. And it was the language of how biblical faith called us to resist the war we were facing and the kind of materialism and greed in our culture, and a call to really radical faith. Article after I read this, and I said, I just didn't know anyone else was thinking like this. This is amazing. So I walked into the senator's office, and it was a Friday, and I said, Senator, this magazine just, newsprint thing just came in. I just might like to read it, take it home. Monday morning, he came into the office, and I walked in and I said, Senator, did you have a chance to read the Post-American? He said, yes. Get these people on the phone right now.
wow.
So I scrambled around and I found this name, Jim Wallace. I found his number. I got him on the phone and put him on the phone with Mark Hatfield and with me. And that was 1971. That Christmas, I went out to Chicago, met him in the small emerging community. And that began a relationship that has continued to this day. It's actually 50 years. The community moved to DC in 75, and at that point, a couple years later, I left working for Mark Hatfield and became one of the editors of the magazine as we tried to get that thing launched. And then it has grown and grown since then to I think being one of the more remarkable stories in religious journalism in America.
Oh yeah, and there's no question about that. It's been very influential, and as I said, I had no idea that was the history, that it went back that far.
Yeah.
But congratulations on making something like that happen that's been so long lasting.
Yeah. No, it's really a great story, and its voice. Its voice continues today. It's more important than ever.
Yeah. So before we started the recording, you and I were talking about pilgrimage and some of its applicability, and we're going to do some more work on that, another interview on that probably down the road. But maybe you could talk a little bit about pilgrimage, in more depth, and kind of like how you reflect on that in the book.
Well, I really became intrigued, Brian, when I first heard someone talk about the Camino de Santiago in Spain. Something just resonated in my heart, and I felt, I think I need to do that sometime, because my own journey has moved from just getting the right ideas in my head about faith to deepening the convictions that go to the heart and go to the practices of faith. And I remember feeling this is something I should do. And then the opportunity came about 2 years ago in the summer 2018, where with 3 other companions, I was able to experience a good chunk of that pilgrimage. And it not only had a deep effect on me, but it had me come to understand how pilgrimage, how walking with holy purpose to a destination is a way that for centuries people have embodied their faith and have lived it out. And it becomes a metaphor for our overall journey. We tend to think, at least in my tradition, we tend to think that faith consists of a belief in beliefs. You get the right beliefs in your head, then you've got faith. I think faith is so much more a matter of how we embody practices of how we live, and that's a shift. It's a shift from my tradition, the Reformed tradition. It puts all this weight in creeds and confessions, getting all the right words into a neat box. But I've kind of broken away from that box. I think faith is far more about embodying practices that make that faith real than it is about getting the right ideas in our heads.
Very cool. Well, it sounds like that was like an amazing experience for you.
And then I've had, I decided I needed to go to Lourdes, France in order to visit what it's, probably one of the world's most popular Christian sites. It's Catholic, but in that long tradition. I had then another amazing experience in Nigeria, in a gathering of 100,000 Christians there who come from an African instituted church and gather and worship throughout the night into the morning. Where I live in New Mexico, the Sanctuario de Chamayo is actually the most visited site of its kind in the United States. People don't realize it, but it's for decades people have been making pilgrimages there. But it's not so much about just, some people have the opportunity. Some people, they can't go more than 30, 40 miles from their home. But being able to see that our faith is a pilgrimage in which we have to take steps ahead that teach us what we have to leave behind in order to get to what we really desire. That to me is what's really important. A lot of people can write kind of a travelogue about pilgrimages, but really explaining how our faith is lived out as a pilgrimage that constantly asks us to move forward by moving out of our normal routines and leaving behind things that weigh us down in order to move into the place of faith we're called to. That's the message that deeply intrigues me.
So, we're in kind of a time of pandemic where people can't travel a whole lot right now, but
Right.
Once we get past that, for someone looking to do this, and maybe hasn't really had those kinds of experiences before, is there any particular route or any particular pilgrimage that you'd recommend?
No, you know what I'd say? So we're in a pandemic. What the pandemic has done has created a disruption in all of our lives. Our normal routines have been disrupted. And we can either take that as a real burden, or we could take it as an opportunity that allows us to ask deeper questions and to really move in deeper ways. So, I've written a reflection guide that goes with the book, and I've said you can do a pilgrimage right from your home. You can do this inward journey without even leaving your home. Even better, you can do this by doing some intentional walking within the 10 miles of where you live, because I think there's some real value in how we reflect and pray and move in direction. So people don't have to wait until they can get on a plane and fly somewhere to one of these really popular pilgrimage sites. They can say, COVID-19 has broken up my routine so much. I've now got time. I've got space. I could say, especially now with the election over, with all the kind of turmoil that's been going on, I can take space to journey inward here and now, understanding my life as a pilgrimage in order to equip me for what's ahead. So
that's really cool. I'm really glad that you did that. You said it was a reflection guide?
Yeah, it'll come out right on the publication date of the book, and it'll be free. It'll be, on the website, and anyone can take it and use it to allow the content of the book to not just be something you read, but something you work with, which is what my hope has been.
Excellent. I should have mentioned before that this book is coming out from Broadleaf Books, which is a division of 1517 Media, perhaps better known as Fortress Press and its affiliates. But that's really great that you guys came up with that guide so that the book can be, even more useful during the time we're at right now.
I think so, and I think it really causes us to ask some central questions. Questions like, whose life am I living? Whose life am I living? Another question I like is, why are you where you are now? And whenever you experienced life as more than you could plan for, I think this is a time when we can ask probing questions that that in normal times we frankly, we're just too preoccupied. We've got too much going on. We're going too fast, and we're running to keep up. And at least my life has changed a lot. I used to fly 100,000 miles a year. I haven't gotten on a plane since March. And
I know the feeling.
Probably be a year before and so suddenly I've got time that I never had before. I think that's just true for many, many people. Their life circumstance has changed. And sure, it's depressing in many ways, but hey, it also opens up opportunities. I think no one moves forward in their spiritual life without some kind of disruption in their normal routine. And now that's happened to all of us. We don't have a choice.
Disruption.
Our choice is how are we going to respond to it?
Yeah. It really has opened up a lot of different opportunities in unexpected ways, unexpected directions.
Yeah.
But that's a great way to think of, pilgrimage and change in that context. Yeah. So a couple different questions looking forward. One is, do you have any other pilgrimages specifically planned for yourself?
Yeah. There are two things in terms of an actual physical pilgrimage. I would like to return to the Camino de Santiago if I don't want to embarrass them, but if I could either get my son or my daughter to go with me. I'd love to do this with one of my kids should that opportunity ever present itself, because I think, and this is another interesting thing, Brian, the physical experience of pilgrimages creates community and bonds in ways that you hardly would ever expect, because you encounter people who are walking together in a common direction, and they're often, they're, for at least a time being, they're walking away from their former lives. and they're taking a break. Often they're searching for something. And, you meet people when you're on a pilgrimage like this, and you introduce yourself, and, I'm Leroy from Australia. And your first question isn't, oh, well, what did you do there? Or what, where you, your first question is, well, why are you on this pilgrimage? That's the first question. And so suddenly you get a level of conversation that is so rich and out of the ordinary. And even if you go with someone whom you know, like in my case, one of my kids, you'd have opportunity for interchange that just normally wouldn't happen. The other physical place I would love to go, if I were, to do something more while my knees would still hold out, it would be to Norway. There's the Trondheim, Norway. This Nidaros Cathedral is a cathedral where Saint Olaf is buried, who was kind of the one who brought together what is the origins of modern Norway. And it used to be a pilgrimage site, one of the main pilgrimage sites in Northern Europe. Well, in the recent past, I'd say about 10 years, they've now revived this. And so there now is a whole pattern of pilgrimage with places to stop and inns and so forth that wind its way up through Norway to Trondheim. And that would be another fascinating experience if I was to, go on another physical pilgrimage.
Wow, that would be. As long as you go at the right time of the year, I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're doing this in the summer.
So, without divulging anything that you can't, I mean, are there any future books that you are already working on or have in mind?
Not yet. I'm trying to focus on getting this one out. But typically, I've written a book recently about every 2-3 years. I mean, it takes about that long to write one, at least in my style. And my editor's already talking to me about it, and I'm pretty sure I'll be back at my computer before long working on something else. But right now I kind of want to live into seeing whether this book, Without Oars, casting off into a life of pilgrimage, whether it strikes a chord and whether it kind of, meets a hunger that people have. I just want to see what happens with it.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we're looking forward to it. And I'll make sure that, I help get the word out about it. So,
Great.
Well, Wes, it was really great to be able to spend some time together. Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much again for all the things that you've done throughout your life. And we'll be looking forward to the release of this book. And all of us kind of trying to understand more deeply what kind of pilgrimage we can undertake.
Well, thanks very much, Brian. It's been a real delight to be able to share a bit about the book and share a bit about my journey, which is always kind of a treasure. It's for any of us, that's kind of walking on holy ground, and I appreciate it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, again, the book is called Without Oars, Casting Off into a Life of Pilgrimage. It's releasing November 17th from Broadleaf Books, along with an accompanying free reflection guide. So everyone run out there and pre-order that.
Yeah, in fact, it's already it doesn't come out till November 17th, but it's already being shipped. I learned from some of my friends who've already gotten their copies. So
Excellent. Well, I'll be looking forward to that.
Great.